Please welcome Edthena.
Yeah, thank you. So Google auto-suggests reveals some interesting things at times, but being a teacher is not worth it. I tend to disagree. I was a teacher. I'd say it was very rewarding. It was just a lot of hard work. And for that, let's talk about a real teacher. So Taylor is just finishing up his first year of teaching algebra in the Seattle area. And he agrees, teaching is a lot of hard work. And like a lot of teachers, he's got a lot to do, but fundamentally he wants to get better so that he can have impact with his students. He wants somebody to come observe him teaching and give him feedback. Lucky for him, he happens to know Teresa, who is a math instruction expert and willing to give him this feedback. There's only one potential hitch. Taylor teaches in Seattle, but Teresa lives and works in San Diego. But this hasn't been a problem for them this past year because they are real users of Edthena. Edthena is bringing observation and feedback online for teacher coaching and teacher improvement. Today, we're excited to show for the first time the new version of Edthena, which we're launching to our existing users in just a few weeks. So what you're looking at here is a video that's been shared inside a group. So if you're a coach coming to watch a video, your first question is, well, what's happening in this video? So we've taken great care to put all that information just one click away. So you can see inside this tab, the teachers provided a description of what's happening in the lesson, but also the lesson plan and sample student work. Again, all those things right there, one click away. So let's jump into the observation process. So I've seen this video before, and I happen to know that if we scroll forward just a bit, we're going to see the students taking notes off the board. Now, what we can't tell is whether or not these students are copying directly or if they're incorporating their own thoughts into these notes. And really, that's an issue that we need to address with this teacher. So all we need to do to leave a comment is basically reach out and touch that plus sign on the timeline. And instantly, the video pauses, and we're presented with this option around selecting a comment type, a question, a suggestion, a strength, or a note. So this is a question, and then we type in our comment. And you'll notice here we can very seamlessly attach this comment to a teaching framework row right here very easily. So this framework is customizable depending on your context. And then all you have to do is click the submit button. And instantaneously, that comment is added to the timeline. The comment appears below. So for the observer, you know it's working. You can see the impact you're having on this experience. So we scroll forward toward a little bit later in the lesson as Jennifer, the teacher, starts to wrap up. She does something really great. She starts to connect the concepts that she's teaching about algebraic equations to the real world using a sports analogy. And this is something that we should really point out to her is a strength in her teaching. So again, all we need to do is reach out and touch that plus sign. We can say that it's a strength of her teaching. We can add the comment very seamlessly, tag it to the teaching framework, and then we can, I think you just need to add a space after your comment. Great. And then you can add it to the timeline just as simply and effectively, instantaneously, sorry. So you notice this, again, instant updating of the timeline in the environment. So what's really cool about using video to conduct observations for teachers is that you start to take away the time and geography barrier that's traditionally present with in-person observations. But what's even cooler is that as we start to bring this technology, use technology to facilitate this process, we can actually create new ways for people to collaborate on this same video for this teacher. And so while we've had the video open up here, Matt and the audience has actually also had the video open, and he can leave a comment about something that happened a little bit earlier in the video. So you notice he just pushed submit on his end, and the conversation on our end is instantly updated. So this real-time collaboration is possible on video. This is something that's not been possible before inside of education or outside. So admittedly, this is some exciting technology, but what really matters at our core is whether or not this technology is making a difference. And so that's why we go back and ask Taylor what he thinks. And when you ask Taylor about his experience using Edthena this past year, he'll tell you that it was critically important to his development and his success in his first year of teaching. So what have we learned along the way? The first is that this experience using video needs to be simple. Video, let's be honest, can be a scary proposition. Most people have not uploaded videos before to the internet, and so we need to make that easy and non-threatening for them. Hopefully our design reflects that simplicity and low training requirements, but we've also taken care of the process end to end and even make getting the video online a drag and drop process for everyone. The second is that people care about their videos being secure. Sure, they want the videos securely locked inside of our platform, but they also want to make sure that this is a safe place to ask for help. And that's why our platform is rooted in concepts around coaching and improvement, sitting in stark contrast to a workflow that would be designed around high-stakes evaluation. What are we looking for? We'd love to talk to partners to expand our footprint this year. Now that we're launching our new version, we're ready to go much faster. So if you know some school districts or schools of education that might be interested, we'd love to talk to them. Additional advisors in the K-12 education sector, always could use some more advice there. And we are building a large and scalable company, so happy to talk to additional investors as well. We're also on AngelList. Edthena, we're bringing observation and feedback online to connect teachers to coaching anytime, anywhere.
Great. Well done. Awesome. I'm pretty sure we're going to have some teachers who have thoughts. So if you do, go ahead and raise your hand. But to our panel of judges, thoughts?
I was a little unclear as to how the teachers actually get connected to the advisors.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So today we operate by going to the organization around the teacher. So take, for example, the University of Michigan. We might be working with their teacher education program, or we are working with their teacher education program. So the teacher candidates there are uploading their videos to our platform, but University of Michigan already has coaches in place, right? They have their faculty and their adjunct faculty and their supervising teachers, and the list kind of goes on.
Who pays those people, or are they doing it voluntarily?
So it's kind of all rolled, in that instance, it's all rolled into the fees related to student internship or course fees. And so what we're providing is really the infrastructure around how to facilitate the observation and feedback process more efficiently and more effectively. So this is something that they're already doing, but now with using video in an online systematic way, they can do it more easily.
I would just say, I love where you're taking professional development, because instead of going off for a 4-day conference somewhere, doing it real time in the classroom is such an important space. So love what you're doing. Some of the complexity is just, who was taking the video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, is this an added expense, or talk to me a little bit about that. Then also, the quality of that, because you could be zoomed in on one kid and something else is entirely happening. So it seems like that's an important piece of your puzzle. So I'd like to understand that better. And then just, instead of getting hooked up to some mentor who's on the other side of the country, why wouldn't you have, the school system is trying to coach its teachers. Mm-hmm. There's someone in the school system who is actually going to be the mentor, and they're incentivized to be the mentor because they want the quality of their school to go up. So what's the school model as opposed to just, this kind of mentor in the cloud type of thing? So talk to me a little bit about both of those.
Sure. So let me answer both of those. So to the first question around who's recording the video, that's a really great question, because our demo probably disguises who's usually recording the video, because there was somebody operating a camera. So I'd say 99% of the videos we have in our system today are shot by the teachers themselves. So really our process is figuring out how do you actually empower the teacher to gather that evidence and make it simple and easy enough that you can deploy this process at scale so that it's not a barrier or a challenge for them. So just to talk about University of Michigan again, we've been able to take out all the middlemen in the process for them. They have their teacher candidates recording themselves, and they just say, put it up on Edthena, and it's a done deal. And there's kind of new research coming out of, or I guess starting at Harvard, around this whole process of teacher empowerment for data collection to really validate that is the right model. To your second question around using local mentors versus mentors in a distributed network, so I think we're perfect for that, right? In the sense that if you're a district and maybe you have 5 math coaches. Today, when we go and talk to a chief academic officer or something, they use this term. They see what we do, and they're like, oh yeah, this would solve for all that windshield time that we pay for. And by windshield time, they mean all the time that their math coaches that they're paying for are driving from school to school because they don't have enough math coaches to be full-time at each school. So they understand and see that basically our tools and our platform can give them the same efficiencies in a local-based model as well as a model where the coaching is distributed.
And what about the cameras? I mean, the blocking and tackling issue, like zooming in or multi-camera. I mean, how do people solve that, or do people actually do this with iPhones?
They do, yeah. So we take an approach that you have to be able to use any camera any modern camera, I should say, to be able to capture that video. So that means iPhone, Android phone, but go down the list of old flip cameras and your document camera that's inside your classroom already. Basically, any of these video capture devices that you have or are in place or $99 at the store has to be usable in inside of our platform. To your other question around, would you need somebody to operate it or multiple cameras? I had a similar question when I started and thinking like, well, do we need to provide lots of training to a teacher how to put the camera up, and do they need lots of rules for this? And I went and asked people that were doing this. They're like, yeah, no, like as long as they get the record button pushed, we kind of view this as increasing the number of touch points. We weren't going to be able to get there anyway. This isn't meant to be legally defensible video, so it's okay that we capture some percentage of the information visually in the classroom, and then we try to supplement the other information by providing all that contextual detail around the conversation.
What do you think, Charlie, about at Bay Ridge Prep and doing this kind of stuff? Is it something you think you would actually use?
The benefit is, as a principal, when I walk in the room, the kids are perfect. So, so I do like the idea, because you're not really seeing a realistic picture. So the question becomes, is the presence of a camera in there, I think it'll last about 10 minutes, and then the kids will forget it, that it's taping. So I do think you'll get a more realistic picture. And I have heard of this model before, but now you're putting together an infrastructure. So I think there's a lot of promise to it. What I wonder, though, is does this become a part of the teacher's permanent record? And for good or for bad? Because you're putting a lot of information in there. The job of people who have to supervise a lot of teachers, especially in the public schools, is they have to then write notes on all of this. It has to go in a file. But to some extent, you guys, is this? So
the answer there is yes and no. So I think, as we really think about how we fit into the long-term kind of career evidence gathering of a teacher, we really think about the data that you're gathering as you are the owner of that data. You control where that data sits in the system. You control that when you upload a video, you share it to a group. And so some of the things that we're planning and have in the works are kind of structures inside of our system to actually create that division between the moments where you're coaching me and I'm just showing you how I am, and then at the end of the year maybe when you say, well, show me that you actually grew on your execution around how you ask students questions. Maybe that's a different way. Maybe I have a separate bucket for that inside the system.
Could this be provided as a marketplace where, I am a great teacher coach and I'm offering my services there, and then I'm just a teacher who wants to be better, and I come in and I'm like, okay, I looked in the math directory, the history directory, and I submitted my video to them independent of the school and just got one-on-one feedback. Or the school could pay for it and I just get the feedback and nobody else sees it and then it's destroyed.
Absolutely. So I think one of the really exciting things about what we're doing is for the first time creating the opportunity for that to happen. I mean, it's very normal to think that you would do that if you were learning to play tennis, right? You'd go to the group lessons and then eventually you would run out of the value of the group lessons. You want to get the private instruction and get better at tennis. For a teacher, you don't have a way to do that today without feeling like somebody's, like knowing that you're getting that extra help, right? And what's possible with Edthena and creating this infrastructure to allow for a marketplace to occur, we actually do believe that teachers will be able to go into that marketplace and supplement and increase the amount of coaching they're getting on their own.
Question from the audience.
Oh, hi. I'm Alexa, and I run Workshop Education, which teaches innovation classes for kids after school. And a few things that I really like about this. One, teachers, so the model now I use is I'll go and observe for an hour and write a lot of notes. And it's sort of like giving someone too much information about a golf swing. They're often very unconscious when they're in front doing public speaking or in front of the kids. And it's kind of overwhelming to give them that much feedback. In this sense, you could just say, here's how I transition the kids from outside to inside. Here's 5 minutes, and you could give very specific feedback that is manageable for the teacher to take in. The second thing I like about it is that sometimes, sort of like the Khan Academy, that kids like it because there's not someone breathing down their neck. I think teachers would prefer sometimes the anonymity of just posting this and getting feedback. It's hard to be aware, and it's easier to do when it's not someone so close to you. The third potential I see for this is that what I do with kids a lot who struggle socially, when they're in a group, they're very unconscious. And so I will film them, but it's kind of embarrassing and cringing for them to watch themselves being overly, bossy or whatever in the group. So to be able to kind of watch it on their own and just insert a few comments, I think would help the kids be able to be more aware about themselves. So I could see that as a future way to go with this. Thank you.
Coaching kids.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to think about it. I think your comment really points out how we sit at the nexus of kind of three bodies of research. The first is that we know that people improve when they watch themselves on video, right? The power of self-reflection, stepping outside yourself and seeing yourself on video. The second is we know people improve by watching others on video. So there is value of just teachers watching other teachers. And the third, the academic term, is that people improve in what we call networked improvement communities, which is basically a fancy term for social networks online that are geared toward learning. And so really what we're doing is creating all three of those things to coexist in one place for the first time.
Awesome. One more question from a teacher, maybe? Yeah.
I'm a big believer in teachers who are being observed, being able to ask what they'd like the feedback on. And so forgive me if I missed that, but I think it would be very easy to add, here's my video, I'd really like suggestions on X, Y, or Z. And then they feel a little bit more in control of the response they get, and they're receptive to the information they get. So you might give them an option, anything you think of, or I really want feedback on this aspect.
Definitely agree that that's very valuable to put in there. And when we have the description tab, we're kind of experimenting with what the final design would be. But we have tested out using the prompt, what should we be looking for? And so it is in line with that. Basically, providing that space for the teacher to explain what the video is about or what this conversation should be about. So it's not as much about necessarily the mechanics of the lesson, but more about what the coaching should be on, how the conversation should evolve.
So to the investors on the panel, seeing some of the teacher feedback here, how does that make you feel about Edthena as a possible investment opportunity? Eileen or Mitch? Yeah.
Well, I think it all starts with product, and there's a lot of value in product. We've had conversations about this. I think as an investor, the whole issue of distribution, monetization, what has been learned from the pilots, how long does it take to sell? I mean, there's a whole inquiry outside the scope of this demo that's really the determinative piece about what it's going to look like as an investment. We said startups are hard, and great products are, I would say, often necessary, but not always sufficient. Yeah. And so that's the other zone of issues that are really determinative.
Right. We seem like we have a lot of enthusiasm from teachers and administrators. Who pays for all this, I guess, is one of the questions.
Yeah, my question would be even more specific, similar, which is you seem to have a little bit of customer confusion because you were talking about different entities, the university who has an incentive, the administrator who has an incentive, then you talked about potentially the teacher looking for feedback. And I would just say, like, sometimes usually with startups with a new product or a second take at a product, being very clear about who that first customer base is important. And then I would tie into that just another small comment, which is like, what's the big vision here? And I sort of get it, but you didn't say it, and that to me is the big vision. Like, hey, there are a lot of teachers out here that with a little bit of feedback could have much better results. And this is a big vision company, and I think we lost that a little bit, and so I would like to hear it.
Before you answer, let me get Eileen's comments, and then we'll let you answer everybody as a group. Yeah.
I'm really intrigued by delivery of remote services over video. I think that there's a huge market, and a lot of the things that we do today that's live will be replaced by video and kind of virtual, and kind of to the customer confusion point, your sell might be more that's districts under budget crunches where people have to supervise 3 times as many teachers as they used to. This is actually the only way they're going to be able to deliver the service. But as Mitch mentioned, I get nervous, and I think the bar is higher when you have to sell institutional systems, where I think, as you alluded to, there can be teacher pushback. Unions may start to push back on this because it goes into what's in the permanent record and just all kinds of stuff that makes it more complicated, in which case then a totally separate conversation about, like, what is the real value proposition? How do you sell it? Do you need to deliver metrics so there's actually efficacy in terms of this really does quantifiably improve teacher behavior and performance? Like, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that you probably can't cover in 6 minutes.
I was going to actually preface my answer to the question with, I have answers to all of that, and a lot of clarifying details, which fall way out of the
Right.
scope of what would be
We
here.
have to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I would say we definitely know who we're selling to in the next 6 months. We know why we're selling to them.
And who is that briefly?
We're selling primarily to schools of education and teacher networks and professional organizations. They have money to spend. They spend it faster. There's some strategic reasons to be working with them first. And the big vision, it's really in two parts. So the vision for the company is that part one, you have to build the software that actually makes it possible to bring this process online. Right? You can't just say that you're going to replace in-person observation. And the kind of belief is that once you prove that, once you become the de facto place for videos of instruction to exist online, then on top of that, you can build a marketplace for coaching services to exist for the first time. Because really the pain point that a district ultimately has is the gap between the people that are on the ground and the amount of coaching that they need to provide.
That's a mission, not a vision.
They have dollars to pay for this.
No,
so,
but his point is, since he coaches entrepreneurs, vision is we can make teachers better, and or we,
Sure.
you know, that the sort of grand vision is, you know, and there's mission, tactics, mission, you know, and then vision. So anyway,
Helpful.
he'll talk
Our
to you
mission's in
afterwards.
two
He's got a
parts
whole
then.
formula for it. Let's hear it for Edthena, and let's.